Hi again, this is video 5 in our series, Who is on Your Healthcare Team? In this video, we're going to stick with invisible members, although at the very end, I'll give you two little most valuable player ideas that are not invisible. We're sticking with invisible ones for this video, and we're going to talk about mentors and guides. There are people on your healthcare team who you might not have ever met. Maybe they are ancestors of yours. Maybe they are people in stories that are important to you. These are mentors and guides who have helped form our ideas and opinions about healthcare. So just like with the media, where we're really given kind of in a pretty box, this is what health looks like, we are also given ideas about health and wellness from our family, both our immediate family, but our whole line, our family line. We are given ideas about health and wellness from our communities. We are given ideas about health and wellness from our traditions even. You might be part of a spiritual or religious tradition that has stories about health and wellness. These have all helped form how you approach your life in terms of wellness. This became really clear to me early in my diagnosis in terms of my line in a couple of ways. I was obviously very sick, and it happened really, really quickly. And I resisted getting help for a little bit, as much as I could. I ended up in the ER time and time again, so it didn't work very well, thank goodness. But I pushed it off a little bit, and later, when I questioned myself, why did I stall on my health care? What I realized is that there have been a group of women in my lineage, in my past, my ancestors, who were very, very sick, chronically sick. And I had heard of these women, and I had somehow associated them with weakness. In my head, I did not want to be like them. So they were mentors to me of what I didn't want to be. And so much so, that was such an unconscious kind of decision early in my life that I actually almost caused myself harm by my relationship to these mentors and guides. Thankfully, as I said, my body didn't hold up enough to do that. I ended up in the emergency room. And later when I realized, wow, I have judged these women for being weak, because that's kind of the folklore in our family. These are weak women, and they were in the bed all the time, and they're sort of dismissed. But I spent a lot of time connecting with them. They're gone. They're not alive, but I connected with them in my heart. I tried to talk to them as mentors, and I really learned about them and their conditions in a much fuller way as I was reconstructing my ideas about what health and wellness were. So I got to find in them mentors, but not the mentors I had, which was them as an example of what I don't want to be. They became much more nuanced people in my memory. The same thing with stories. I started paying attention to stories in my heritage about people whose bodies were frail or fragile or had been broken in some way. One of my favorite stories in my tradition comes from the Hebrew scriptures, and it's of a man named Jacob. And he, one night at rest, he has a vision or an experience of wrestling with an angel all night. It goes on all night, and he's wrestling with this angel. And at the end, he asks the angel for a blessing. The angel renames him Israel, so he is the leader of all of Israel to come, right? He's the creation of it. Jacob is left with a limp. He actually never is the same again. His leg is frail because of this incredible event that happened to him. So when I kind of went back and started thinking about how I wanted to envision my wellness and my condition, I reclaimed a lot of stories from my past like that and from my heritage and said, there are lots of stories about people who have chronic conditions who are the most powerful and courageous people. That's what I want to have in my fullness. And that helped me round out these images I had been given through our media, that there's one specific, perfect kind of health. So my invitation to you is to look for mentors and guides. You don't need to know them. And now this is one great thing about us having so much information right now. We find stories all the time of folks who have all different kinds of wellness. So it's not just the 92-year-old person who's still running marathons. That's one idea of wellness. That's one model, and maybe it's for you. But you might also find the child who's born with some kind of condition who, during her teen years, finds a way to help others through that. Maybe she becomes your mentor. They're everywhere. One thing that I'm loving, especially during COVID, it's become really, really a popular thing to find on social media, but it's been there for a while. There's a hashtag called We Are the Vulnerable. And people put images of themselves so that we start to realize that vulnerable just means vulnerable. It doesn't mean that these people are broken. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily weak. It doesn't mean anything except that they're vulnerable to certain situations. So take a look at hashtag We Are the Vulnerable and see the wealth of imagery of different folks who courageously say, hey, this is what my life is like. Maybe you'll find a mentor there or a guide. You can find them everywhere. Like I said, it might be from your own family, like mine is. It might be from your religious tradition. It might be someone you see in media who you don't even know. Maybe it's somebody who comes to you in the dream time and helps to show you a different idea of what health and wellness is. You get to have as many mentors and guides on your team as possible. I think because they're the invisible, they don't take up any space. Bring as many as you'd like onto your team. Now I'm going to end with two little bits. These are in some of our blogs. So our blogs during the month of September 2020, you can find them years in the future. There's a group of 5 blogs all dealing with your healthcare team, and 2 short ones I want to direct your attention to because these are what I call the most valuable players on our team. They are children and pets. I think that children, especially the youngest ones, and pets of all kinds can be the most faithful and important members of our healthcare team. They are ideal to be on our healthcare team because mostly they show up without any kind of judgment. So none of those ideas about what's healthy is in their head. They just show up with what's here. I learned this really early on with my son, not only on my own team. He was there. He was a year old when I was first diagnosed, and then my daughter was born into the team. She had no choice. Neither one had choice, but she knows no different. They both are members of my healthcare team as kiddos, but they also started going on hospice visits with me. I was a volunteer, and this was before we had a lot of regulations about visits, and my kids would come with me on visits because time and time again, patients would say, would you bring your kids? And I finally came to the conclusion that I was really just there as the taxi driver and transportation, and they were doing the connecting because there was something so precious that was happening between my young kiddos at the very beginning of their lives and these folks who were in the very end of their lives. Their lives looked so similar. Their curiosity, the time they had in their lives, what was important, was so similar. Even though they were at the beginning of their journey, my kids, patients were at the end of theirs. Similarly, I have seen pets bring so much to a healthcare team, an immeasurable joy and comfort and love. Sometimes even they bring an ability to diagnose. There's a little blog up that tells us a little bit about the research that's going on to the role that pets play. Sometimes they're even able to know that something's up with us before we do. To pets and kiddos, if you have access to them, I advise you to seek out these folks and put them as your most valuable players on your healthcare team. I'd love to hear about how your team is playing out, how you're organizing it. If you've got a picture, send it to me. And let's connect. If you have any questions, if you need guidance creating or shifting your healthcare team, just email me or give me a call, and I'd be happy to help you design that. Good luck. I wish you wellness and a whole lot of fun creating your healthcare team. Thank you.